Chapter 11. When the rumbling finally stopped, nobody moved. A soldier came around to pull the canvas aside. Everybody got off. A big sign read, San Carlos Racetrack. A tall stone wall encircled the track. Sumiko looked up at a guard tower and saw a soldier pointing a rifle at her. She froze, but then he moved his rifle toward another truck. Sumiko realized she had driven by here before, on the way to a picnic. When soldiers opened the gate, Sumiko didn't move. Finally, Ichiro led the way, Tac-Tac's crickets slung over his back. Inside the racetrack, Sumiko saw row after row of barracks. She followed Ichiro to a table where a Nikki man checked them in. "You're assigned to Section 7, Stable 4, the man said, as if everything were perfectly normal, as if he were saying something as mundane as, "The weather is nice today." The man continued casually, "You can drop off your things and then return to pick up your cots and fill your mattresses with straw. Mattress bags are in the corner there. Next!" Ichiro and the rest of the family walked off, and Sumiko chased after them. Stables lined the walls of the racetrack, while the barracks sat in the center. There was not a tree in sight. Open trenches stretched across the front of some of the barracks, with planks of wood forming a bridge into the front door. Sumiko smelled sewage. Tac-Tac grabbed her hand and said hopefully, "Will we live with a horse?" "No," she said, although she honestly didn't know. In fact, she thought anything was possible now. She was still herself, and her family were still themselves, but every other thing was different. A few families were filling bags with straw. A sign said, "Fill mattresses here." "No horse?" said Tac-Tac. "Are they going to kill us?" He spoke as if no horse and kill us were somehow related. "No, they're giving us mattresses," Sumiko said logically. So they wouldn't give us a mattress if they were going to kill us. She watched him to see whether he thought that sounded as ridiculous to him as it suddenly did to her. As if mattresses were somehow related to not killing us. But he seemed satisfied. Section 7, Stable 4, was at the far end of the grounds. Stable 4 was part of a line of old wooden stables with chipping white paint. Ichiro stepped gingerly inside. Sumiko followed, and then the others. Nobody spoke. It looked like a 2-horse stable. It stank of manure and chlorine. Mushrooms grew on a corner. One light bulb hung from above. Sumiko squinted at the bulb. 25 watts. She turned to Ichiro. "How are we going to live here?" "What do you mean, how? We don't have a choice." All afternoon they filled bags with straw and dragged them to their stable. Sometimes it seemed there were hundreds of people converging on the straw like flies. Ichiro had already found out that there would be almost 20,000 people living in the racetrack until permanent camps were ready for them. Sumiko did the only thing she knew to do when she was scared or sad: work hard. Working hard made Sumiko feel better. Not good, but better. After all the mattresses were filled, Sumiko tried lying on her straw bed. It felt uneven and prickly. She rearranged it and tried again, but it felt exactly the same. Tac-Tac was trying his out too. "It feels pokey," he said. "I'll put an extra sheet for you," Sumiko said. A gong rang, and Sumiko looked at Ichiro to see what they should do. He and Bull stepped outside. Sumiko and Tac-Tac followed and saw dozens of screaming kids tearing through the aisles, shouting, "Dinner! Dinner!" Dinner was served in a huge, long room called a mess hall. Everybody got their food on trays and went to sit at picnic tables. The entree was cod stew. The other kids ate as if starving and then ran out. Sumiko's stomach rumbled all evening, even after their lone dim light bulb had been turned off and everyone else was asleep. Later, she woke up with a desperate need to use the bathroom. When she sat up, Tak-Tak said softly, "Sumiko?" "Yes." "I pooped in my pajamas." "All right, come on." She switched on the bulb to find new clothes for him. "What is it?" Auntie said sleepily. "Tak-Tak needs new pants," she said. She'd packed only one pair of pajamas for him. She decided she'd put him in his long johns. "Come on." She took his hand. A few steps outside their stable, a searchlight caught them in its glare. Sumiko hissed, Stay still." Tak-Tak froze, whimpering very softly. Then she looked up and saw a soldier standing beside the searchlight. She looked down and saw another searchlight following an old man toddling down an aisle. The beam that had been on her moved and crossed the other beam, and then it began to follow somebody else. She pulled her brother to the latrine. Despite the hour, there was a line outside. "Everybody's got diarrhea from dinner," an old woman told her. Inside the latrine was a line of holes and a wooden platform. Several old women sat on some holes. Sumiko cleaned off her brother's behind and put him in his long johns. On the way back to the stable, the searchlight followed them again, the beam accentuating Tak-Tak's skinny legs. Tak-Tak fell right asleep. But instead of sleeping, Sumiko lay on her straw, smelling manure and listening to her family breathe and imagining the world outside. Houses and grocery stores and playgrounds. Auntie already had thought of a phrase to describe that world. Out there. Sumiko remembered something she'd heard Jishan say once, that sometimes when you are low, all you have left in life was your right to close the door on the world and sit in your room alone, where nothing further could befall you. He had said he'd felt that way when Sumiko's mother died. He had closed the door to his room and separated himself from everything that was out there. Beams from the searchlight reached inside through the stable slats and moved in flashes across the far wall. The searchlights were part of out there. At least Sumiko's family was in here. At least they had a door, and at least it was closed.